find it a little strange that so many of my colleagues here are not talking about the huge substance of what this decision implies. First of all, a decision that some of these justices basically said under oath during their hearings that they would respect legal precedent. And one of the reasons why I didn't vote for these justices that were part of this new conservative majority. But what we're really talking about here is taking away a basic right that women and Americans have enjoyed in this country for over 50 plus years. I think this will set a dangerous precedent. I think the full ramifications of the Alito decision, the harshness of that tone, if it ends up being the full decision, is pretty stunning to me. The idea that a 13-year-old young woman could be a victim of a rape and she would have no ability with her family, with her health care provider, with her religious advocate be able to have any decision or any choice about what happens going forward is pretty stunning to me. The idea that the Supreme Court would roll back these rights even in the case of rape and incest is frankly not where Virginians are or Americans are. I think Americans overwhelmingly want abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. And I think this Supreme Court decision will take away all of those rights. I think it will create a system where people will seek out abortions in unsafe circumstances the way it was back in the 1950s and the 1960s. Obviously, it will make abortion illegal in at least half states and many others. And I don't think it will by any means make abortion rare, but it'll simply drive abortions into the dark alleys of what was the status quo in the 50s and 60s. That's not where I think Americans are headed. I think elections matter. I again urge people to get out and, this is an issue of concern, vote this fall. And my fear is, by the Supreme Court jumping feet first into these culture wars, that this woman's right to choose may just be the first step. Is the next step going to be rolling back any kind of rights women have to obtain contraceptive devices? Does it mean that gay rights or marriage equality will be the next battlegrounds where the Supreme Court rolls in? In our country, I think we've been generally about expanding rights, not constricting rights. And while I'm sure there'll be many more chapters to write in this story, and we'll be anxious to see if we can find who leaked this, which was wrong, but more importantly, if this ends up becoming the final decision, I think it has huge ramifications, obviously, well beyond the direct issue of the rights that have been protected by both the Griswold case around privacy and then the Roe v. Wade case.
The scope of the Alito opinion is extremely broad, and it's much further than just dealing with abortion. I really believe in looking at the opinion, and as somebody who I taught constitutional law at the University of Richmond with a real focus on the 14th Amendment, which fundamentally rewrote the American Constitution. The Constitution that the framers intended, they were okay with women not voting. They were okay with slavery. It took the Civil War and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to fundamentally rewrite the Constitution. And what the 14th Amendment provided was, first, people are entitled to equal protection under the law, but secondly, people are also entitled to due process and no deprivations of life or liberty or property without due process. And there is a 70 or 80 year, at least, stretch of precedent that says that means there are some interests that are so intimate to a person that no matter what the process is, government can't take your rights away. And really the original cases about this are in the space of marriage and reproduction. They started in the 1930s and 1940s. And what the court grappled with, now nearly 100 years ago, were cases where states would do things like, say, prisoners couldn't get married, or they could be sterilized if they had been convicted of sex crimes. And the court basically said, beginning in those cases, the court said, look, in intimate relations, who you have relations with, reproductive integrity or ability to make decisions, government can't intrude on those decisions. And so this sort of safe space for privacy in making intimate decisions has been a part of the court's jurisprudence now for nearly 100 years. It really hit stride in the 1960s with the Griswold versus Connecticut case, where states were criminalizing women and healthcare providers for birth control. Now, I'm not aware that there were efforts to criminalize males for using condoms. This was focused at women, and women were being criminalized, and their providers were being criminalized. Similarly, in the Roe versus Wade and subsequent cases, women were being prosecuted. The criminal law was being used against them if they decided to terminate a pregnancy. And so while the Dobbs opinion is really focused on abortion, the rationale in the Alito opinion goes much farther than that. And it reads to me as if the justice, he's had this on his chest for a long time and he wants to get it off his chest. There's a degree of just anger and pique and dismissing other arguments and dismissing the concerns of women and others who've counted on these constitutional rights for half a century. But there's also, it's like a pre-14th Amendment opinion in some ways, really demeaning and diminishing the due process and equal protection guarantees in the 14th Amendment. So it is extremely troubling, extremely troubling. I'm going to hope that the court may come to their senses about the turn back of the constitutional clock. But I think what we need to do here in Congress is take up the Women's Health Protection Act, which we voted on in February. We couldn't get enough votes in February, but it seemed a bit abstract then. Maybe to some people it's not abstract now. What Congress needs to do is try to provide a guarantee that no matter what zip code you live in, you will be able to make your own reproductive decisions without big government getting in your way and criminalizing providers or others or empowering bounty hunters to go after you.
I mean, the Supreme Court, one of the reasons why it has been the kind of court of last resort is it's always been viewed as kind of beyond politics. And, listen, I think both political parties to a degree have tried to overly politicize their judicial nominees, although, frankly, new ground was broken when Leader McConnell basically didn't allow President Obama to even nominate a judge or even get a hearing. I think that undermines confidence in the court. And I am worried when potential Supreme Court justices come before the Senate and in their effort to try to get the job, get the votes to be confirmed, they say, well, we're going to stand by judicial precedent. And this has been a precedent that has lasted for longer than 50 years. And while I would not have liked it, I could have seen the court narrowing, some of those rights. I wouldn't have agreed with it, but that would have, again, I thought, fallen within the lines that the Supreme Court operates. But the tone and tenor of the Alito decision, and let me be clear, it is only a draft decision. We'll see what comes out from the court in the summer. But I'll stick by my characterization that this is feet first into the culture wars, and I think it is an indication that women's health care may only be the first of what could be a line of attack against contraception, against gay rights, against marriage equality. It's got me gravely worried, and I think so many Virginians who I think, again, regardless of political affiliation, that's not where they want the court to head. That the only guarantee that we have with these kind of lifetime appointments is for people to get out and vote so that some of these rights can actually be enshrined in law.
I think people are shocked about this. In Virginia, overwhelmingly, voters do not want Roe versus Wade overturned. And that includes a lot of pro-life voters. There are many, many people who are like me, personally pro-life, and we live our lives that way. but we don't think women who make other decisions or people who have different opinions should be criminalized for the decisions they make about their own reproductive lives. So that's why you see the polling that I've seen in Virginia and elsewhere suggests that significantly north of 70% of the American public, and similarly in Virginia, do not want Roe versus Wade overturned. And that's what's so unusual. This is a court that apparently 5 members of the court, all of whom appointed by Republican presidents, are taking a step that is dramatically out of step with the wishes of Virginians and with the wishes of the American public. And I'll go further. This is what my GOP colleagues were trying to do when they refused to entertain even meeting with, even giving a hearing to, much less voting for Merrick Garland. They kept a vacancy alive during the last year of the Obama administration so that they could put a justice on who would do this. And then when Justice Ginsburg died right at the end of the Obama administration, despite the fact that they had said over and over again in the Merrick Garland case, well, you shouldn't confirm a justice within the last year of a president's term, they rushed it through with land speed, record time, to put Justice Amy Coney Barrett on the court, again, to do the same thing. So basically, in 2 vacancies, they held one over forever, they rushed another one, and they were trying to do this in both. And so now, look, the American public sees what they're up to, and many of my colleagues, I guess, are going to get what they want and go back to the days when women were criminalized for making decisions about contraception or abortion. But while some of my Republican colleagues want it, and apparently some members of the court want it, it's not what Virginians want, and it's not what Americans want.